My mother-in-law gave me a $10,000 check to leave my fiance because she didn't want anyone poor to marry into the family. I just laughed. That was just what I earn in a single day. The woman sitting across from me looked elegant, perfectly styled hair, pearls around her neck, and an expression that screamed, "I am doing you a favor." She slid a check across the table. $10,000, she said calmly. "Take it and leave my son." I stared at the piece of paper. Then I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, a genuine laugh. The kind that made her eyebrows twitch in annoyance. "Is there something funny?" she asked. I wiped the corner of my eye. No, I was just surprised. At the amount? At your confidence. Her face stiffened. "I know girls like you. You see an opportunity and cling to wealthy men." I almost laughed again. Wealthy? The entire net worth of her family company wasn't even half of mine. But of course, she didn't know that. To the public, I was simply Elena Carter, an ordinary jewelry designer with a small studio. No one knew I was also the owner of Asteria Group, one of the largest investment companies in the country. I preferred it that way. "Take the check," she said. "You and my son come from different worlds." I looked down at the number, $10,000. That was what I earned before lunch. I pushed it back. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Ashford, but your son isn't worth that little." Her face turned red. "Excuse me? If you want me to leave him, at least offer something more convincing." "You're shameless." "No," I said, smiling. "I'm expensive." She looked as though she wanted to throw her tea at me. Instead, she stood. "You'll regret this," I smiled. I already regretted accepting Ethan Ashford's proposal a year ago. I loved him. At least, I used to. But love became exhausting when your fiance never stood by your side. Every family dinner was the same. "Elena's background isn't suitable. She doesn't understand high society. She embarrassed us." And Ethan? He would sit there in silence, every single time. Afterward, he'd say, "Please understand my family. They're only worried about me." I understood. I understood that I was always fighting alone. That evening, I went to Ethan's penthouse. He smiled when he opened the door. "You're early." I walked inside. "We need to talk." He immediately frowned. "What's wrong?" I placed the check on the table. His eyes widened. "My mother gave you this?" "Yes." He sighed and sat down. "I'll talk to her." I stared at him. "That's all? What do you mean?" "She tried to pay me to leave you." He rubbed his temples. "You know how she is." I laughed softly. There it was again. The excuse. Always the excuse. "You never defend me." "I do." "No, Ethan. You apologize for them. That's different." He looked annoyed. "Why are we arguing over this again?" "Because it keeps happening." But I didn't say any of that. I simply asked, "If your family told you to break our engagement, would you?" Silence. Just silence. And somehow, that hurt more than an answer. Finally, he spoke. "They're my family, Elena." I smiled. A small, painful smile. I got my answer. I removed my engagement ring. His eyes widened. "What are you doing?" I placed it on the table. "I'm making the decision you never could." "Elena, we're over." He stood immediately. "Don't be ridiculous." Ridiculous. As though ending a relationship where I was constantly disrespected was irrational. "I've spent 3 years loving you, Ethan." I looked at him. "But I can't spend the rest of my life begging to be chosen." He stared at the ring. "You can't end our engagement over one argument." "It's not one argument. It's my mother again, isn't it?" "No." I shook my head. "It's you." The words hit him like a slap. "You never once stood beside me." He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything, because he knew it was true. I picked up my purse. "Goodbye, Ethan." "Elena, wait." I paused. For a second. A tiny second. Then he said the one thing that destroyed every remaining feeling I had. Can you at least give me some time to convince my family? I closed my eyes. Even now, he still didn't understand. I wasn't leaving because his family didn't approve of me. I was leaving because he didn't have the courage to choose me. I walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. 3 days later, I was sitting in my office on the top floor of Asteria Group. My assistant entered. Miss Carter, the information you requested. He handed me a file. I opened it, then blinked, then laughed. You're kidding. No, ma'am. Inside the file was the financial report of Ashford Corporation. The company was drowning. Millions in debt, unpaid loans, failed investments. If things continued, they would go bankrupt within 2 months. I leaned back in my chair. Interesting. Very interesting. The same family that looked down on me because I was poor was actually 1 step away from financial ruin. My assistant cleared his throat. There's more. What? The banks are preparing to sell their debt. I smiled slowly. Really? Yes. I closed the file. Then I said the words that made my assistant grin. Buy it? All of it? Every single cent. Within 48 hours, Asteria Group owned every debt Ashford Corporation had. In simple terms, I now own the company that thought I wasn't good enough to marry into. Their family. How ironic. I had just broken off my engagement and accidentally bought my ex-fiance's entire future. 3 days later, the Ashford family gathered in their company headquarters. The atmosphere was tense. Mrs. Ashford slammed a folder onto the table. Why are the banks refusing to extend our loans? The finance director looked pale. They've sold our debt. What? They sold everything to another company. Mr. Ashford frowned. Which company? The director swallowed. Asteria Group. The room went silent. Everyone in the business world knew that name. Asteria Group never bought a company unless they intended to own it. Mrs. Ashford gripped the table. Contact them immediately. We already did. And they've requested a meeting tomorrow. For the first time in weeks, hope appeared on everyone's faces. Maybe the new owner would agree to restructure the debt. Maybe the company could still be saved. Ethan, however, felt uneasy. Something didn't feel right. The next morning, the Ashford family entered Asteria Group's headquarters. They all froze. The lobby alone was larger than their entire office building. Employees hurried around in expensive suits. The company logo shone on the marble walls. Mrs. Ashford straightened her posture. At least the owner has good taste. The receptionist smiled. The president is already waiting. They were led to the top floor. The doors opened. A familiar figure stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows, wearing a black suit, holding a cup of coffee. Elena, Mrs. Ashford frowned. What are you doing here? Elena turned around. Her expression remained calm. I've been waiting for you. Did you somehow get a job here? Mrs. Ashford scoffed. Before Elena could answer, the assistant beside her bowed. President Carter, the documents are ready. Silence. Complete silence. Mrs. Ashford blinked. President? The assistant looked confused. Yes. President Elena Carter, owner and CEO of Asteria Group. No one spoke. Ethan's face turned white. Mr. Ashford nearly stumbled backward. And Mrs. Ashford simply stared, as though her brain had stopped working. Elena set her coffee down. Please, everyone, have a seat. Nobody moved. Because suddenly, the woman they had called poor was the richest person in the room. The meeting lasted less than 20 minutes. The Ashford family needed money. Elena had all the money. The balance of power had completely changed. Mrs. Ashford finally found her voice. You lied to us. Elena smiled. I never said I was poor, but you dressed simply. You lived in an apartment. I like simple things. The older woman opened and closed her mouth. She remembered the $10,000 check. Suddenly, she felt as though she had become a joke. Ethan looked at Elena. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at him calmly. "Would it have changed anything?" He didn't answer. Because it would have. His family would have adored her. They would have begged for the marriage. Everything would have been different. And that was exactly the problem. Elena stood. "I'll make this simple." She slid a document across the table. "I am taking over Ashford Corporation." Mrs. Ashford's eyes widened. "You can't do that." "I already did. You'll destroy everything my family built." Elena looked at her. "No. Your family did that all on its own." The room fell silent. Mr. Ashford lowered his head. He couldn't argue. The debts. The bad investments. The greed. It had all been their fault. Ethan finally stood. "Please don't do this." For the first time, his voice sounded desperate. Elena looked at him quietly. "I gave you 3 years, Ethan. I know. I stood beside you every time your family insulted me." He lowered his eyes. "I know. And every time you remained silent." He couldn't deny it. Because it was true. Tears appeared in his eyes. "I loved you." Elena smiled sadly. "I know. Then, can't we start over?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "No." His face lost all color. Because he finally understood. Love wasn't always enough. Sometimes, you lose someone because you failed to protect them when they needed you most. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. 6 months later, Ashford Corporation no longer existed. It had been absorbed into Asteria Group. The employees kept their jobs. The company survived. Only the Ashford family's control disappeared. Mrs. Ashford retired quietly. Mr. Ashford sold most of his assets to pay off personal debts. And Ethan resigned. No one knew where he went. One rainy afternoon, Elena left her office and saw a familiar man standing outside. Ethan. He looked thinner, more tired. But he smiled. "I heard you became the youngest billionaire in the country." She laughed softly. "I suppose I did. I wanted to congratulate you." "Thank you." Silence settled between them. Finally, he spoke. "I spent a long time being angry. At me? At myself." He smiled bitterly. "I kept wondering how I could lose you." Elena looked at him. Then she answered honestly. "You didn't lose me in one day, Ethan." He lowered his head. "You lost me little by little. Every time you chose someone else's opinion over my feelings." His eyes became red. He nodded. "I understand now." A long silence followed. Then he reached into his pocket. Inside was the old engagement ring. "I kept it." Elena smiled. "You should let it go." He looked at the ring. Then at her. "I think I finally can." He placed it into her hand. Not as a proposal. Not as a request. But as a goodbye. He smiled sadly. "I hope you're happy." She smiled back. "I am." For the first time in years, he looked peaceful. Then he turned and walked away. He never looked back. And neither did she. Elena watched the rain for a few moments. Then she slipped the ring into her purse and returned to her office. Her assistant followed behind her. "President Carter, you have another meeting." She smiled. "Let's go." The doors closed. The past remained outside. And ahead of her was an entirely new future.